Hey, everybody. Welcome to the KSL Sports front page. Jeremy Mauss here. I got Mitch Harper back at doing this again, Mitch. So we got you handle, for people who don't know, if you don't know, who are you? Mitch is everything BYU, Cougar Sports Saturday, everything KSLSports.com. For us on the BYU side, I produce the radio show on KSL News Radio, KSL Unrivaled. So we're back for another day here on YouTube, Twitter, anywhere you can find our show, Facebook as well. All right, Mitch, we got to start with some not great news, but it's the fun news. So we got, if you haven't heard, been on the Rock, Utah County, my neck of the woods at the moment. They're back in orange, which, what are they doing, Mitch? Now we can't have any fans at this game this week. In the next 2 weeks, Troy and Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
You're hoping to have people there.
It's a bummer, Jeremy, because, when you're trying to get back to normalcy, having a game taken away from fans, the opportunity to go to a football game that would have brought some normalcy, and to have that go away, it's tough. It's raised questions from, I think, BYU fans, like, was this the right move by Governor Gary Herbert? Because obviously this was something from the state. BYU had no choice on this. They're following the orders of Utah Governor Gary Herbert, who announced yesterday that Provo and Orem going back to the orange phase, as you mentioned, and so it's left Cougar fans without being able to go to any games for Troy and Louisiana Tech. It's a bummer. I don't want to get into whole, like, is this the right move? Is it not? But I mean, I know a lot of Cougar fans are frustrated. They're feeling of, is case counts the only thing that should be examined? There's just frustration. And maybe, though, Jeremy, this can be a good thing where it leads everyone in a direction where we just say, hey, let's try to get to a point where we eventually get to some normalcy. But right now it's tough, because it just feels like you could have adhered to some social distancing in that stadium potentially, but going to orange phase doesn't allow for that.
Yeah, you'd think with how big LaVell Edwards Stadium is, it holds to about 60K, somewhere in there. 6% is about 10%. It's like we've seen NFL games. Like, I think that's what the Cleveland Browns actually have, 6,000. Even though the fight broke out that game last week, which is kind of weird with so few people. But you would think, you're right, you could spread out. I think what was the goal? I believe it was 1,500 per section, so 2 end zones, 2 sidelines. Plenty of room. You see your family members. And it's a bummer too, because people want to go to games. They want people at the games. It's fun to be you went to the Navy game. It's fun to be at a college football game. And now it's taken away, because also it's all the high school games as well. And Provo, technically Provo and Orem are the areas where that's the case. So all the high school teams in that area too can't have fans. So if you're a BYU fan, your season ticket holder, like our buddy Alex Keary, kids going to the game, he had to break the news to him, well, we're not going to this game again coming up. And it's just unfortunate. Hopefully they have enough other home games down the road. Maybe it'll change and things get to where we can go to the games. That's the goal. We want to watch these games in person. It's like, man, you want to smell the great grass before it gets cold, because it's warm outside. They just cut the lawn of the LaVell Stadium. It smelled great. And now, yeah, you can watch on your nice TV, but it's just not the same where you're going to be at a game. And it'd also be a cool experience with so few people there. Like, how many people get to go to a Cavender Stadium where there's very few people there? You can hear everything what the players and coaches are saying. That would have been such a fun experience to do. And now, TBD, I guess, going forward. Everybody do well and wear your mask, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's a bummer. And I do think we've kind of got to a point with sports fandom where I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect from these teams right now. That's kind of tough for fans to not be part of this, because we know we live this. I mean, we follow sports every single day. It's our jobs and we love it. But for fans, when they're working their jobs, they're demanding, and they got their family lives, going to these sporting events and being able to share their experiences on social media and talk with people about all their opportunities going into the game or meet the team nights, that's been taken away. And it's kind of created a little bit of a disconnect between teams and fans. Like, yeah, we all love watching a game on television. I could argue that in some ways it might be just as good of an experience because of how great television sets are these days, but still there's so much value to going to games and shaping fandom and getting people just kind of that connection to these teams. And that's a missed opportunity. And that's what's such a bummer for BYU to be able to play now in a empty stadium. I know some of the players voiced their frustrations a little bit on social media. Lorenzo Fauatea, defensive lineman, he tweeted at the governor and said, hey, I just wanted to have my mom and dad at least go to the game. And your heart aches for those guys because they work so hard to wear their family name on the back of their jerseys. And and show out in person for their family members. And that's not there now. But hey, that's COVID-19. That's 2020, and we have to press on and move forward and hopefully get closer to an end game as soon as possible. I hope, Jeremy.
Yeah, actually, you feel bad for it because if you bring parents and who knows, they could be out of town. Like there's parents who come from anywhere across the country to these games and scheduled up and like, oh, we can be there. Awesome. We couldn't go to Navy. We're going to come here. And now it's like, dang, it's just it's unfortunate. And then we got some other interesting news, I guess, with more BYU. We chatted about this on Rival yesterday with Zach Wilson saying he contracted COVID during summer in a kind of not the way you should be doing stuff, hang out in parties, playing some cards. The good thing is, okay, he seems to be fine. Whatever long-term effects they're going to possibly be there, but he seems to have, at least right now, recovered. He's played his game. So he mentioned that it was the exempt thing where he's not tested for 90 days. It's just because they're pretty secretive about who says what. Any school, not just a private school, but you have like HIPAA laws about, they'll just say contract tracing or we're not playing. They don't really say who. And so him opening up about it is good because, hey, I got it. And so he kind of gives that experience. At least luckily for him, his wasn't that bad. It seemed like being a healthy younger guy. But then again, this also leads up to why maybe Orange, where he's out hanging out with the party at his guy's house during summer playing cards and doing things where probably not his roommates, I'm guessing. And so it's now I'm not gonna say it's a bad look, but it's just like he's healthy, it's great. But it's also there's a reason we want to be safe to do other things. You want to do this type of stuff, then well, maybe you got to wait a few months.
Yeah, and Zach, I thought I appreciated him being open about it because I'll say, Jeremy, I mentioned this on the Cougar Tracks podcast that I host. I even said, like, I haven't known anyone that has contracted COVID-19 yet. And I'm grateful for that. By all means, I don't want any of my family and friends. I want no one for that matter to be testing positive for COVID-19. But it was kind of interesting to hear from someone that I cover in my workspace to, hear what his experience was like with COVID. And he said that it was just about 4 days and a standard cold for him. Now, for other people, it's a much more excruciating and difficult process. Not all cases are similar, but that's where, again, like, these young people that are college age students, it's kind of protecting the vulnerable during this pandemic, and getting Zach's perspective was, I thought, insightful and much appreciated. I'm glad that he's feeling willing to talk and be open about that. I love that about quarterbacks that kind of have a command of the room when they're talking to media members, and he's a fun guy to talk to. So I appreciated him being open. And it was funny though to see on social media people kind of getting up in arms about the gambling angle. I'll admit, maybe I'm just like, Jeremy, I didn't even like flinch when he said it. I was just like, yeah, like, I mean, but in the back of my mind, I knew that with it being a BYU player and the word gambling, it's going to cause a little bit of social reaction. But in all, he's healthy. He's doing good. And quite frankly, he looked dang good against Navy. And I think he's going to continue to play really well for this BYU offense going forward against a schedule that really BYU should be clearly the favorite throughout the rest of the season.
It should be. They got the unis. Am I correct? The same uniforms. He went perfect in the Potato Bowl versus was it Central Michigan, Western Michigan?
Right. Going to go with the all Blues. So BYU going to wear the All Royals. Only the fourth time in the Independence era they're rocking the All Royals, and that Potato Bowl.
They're so good.
They were. That was their only win in it. So the crazy thing is though, Jeremy, and I don't want to be suspicious that guy that always looks at these weird trends, but the last time BYU wore Royal Blues, all Royal Blues at home, they were ranked number 18.
Oh, okay.
This week,
yeah.
They were a 2-touchdown favorite. They're a 2-touchdown favorite this week, and they lost to Utah State. Now, so will Troy recapture what Utah State did 6 years ago? We'll see. But some weird things to kind of look at if you're into those of connections previewing a football game.
Hey, you have fun with it. It's like that. Maybe it's like the Utah Jazz City jersey. Like, we're not taking these to Orlando because we were terrible wearing them. So it's a thing. Yeah. It's a thing. All right, let's get some fun stuff. You put up something moments ago. Tom Brady nearly came to BYU. What's going on here? I know that's not actually the case, but what you put in the book, who was it? Sorry, I don't have the title in front of me. You have it, but he was courted to play BYU, which makes sense. as you put in there, is like he's from California. A lot of BYU recruits that part of the country. They're at that time in the mid '90s, obviously known for passing the ball to other QBs and Lavelle Edwards. So like, was this really a thing or just a courtesy standard? Come to BYU, please, because you play quarterback, like the standard form letter people get when they think they're getting recruited to Alabama, USC, and Texas.
Yeah, so I was reading the book The Dynasty by Jeff Benedict. It's a great book about the New England Patriots dynasty, and I love just these kind of deep dives into teams, and I'm always fascinated by champions and dynasties. What makes someone great, and that's why that book kind of tickled my interest, if you will. But I'm reading the book, and out of nowhere, there's a page talking about BYU, and I'm just like, this is crazy. Tom Brady was teammates with former BYU punter Lee Johnson during his first 2 years as a member of the New England Patriots, and apparently Lee Johnson was talking to Adam Vinatieri during a New England Patriots practice, and he's like, "Who is this guy?" Because Tom Brady was kind of struggling in his rookie season in practice, throwing the ball or whatever. He went up to Tom and they were talking, and Brady was intrigued by Lee Johnson because he was always just a positive guy, always smiling, always happy, a family man, yet also succeeding in the NFL. And they got talking, and Lee Johnson said to Tom Brady that, "Hey, I went to BYU," and obviously he knew he went to Michigan. And Tom's like, "Oh wow, like I kind of grew up following BYU, and in fact, I was, quote, courted," in the book. It's what says, courted by BYU as well. And that was kind of the extent of it. He also mentioned that Steve Young was his favorite player as a kid growing up, both with the Niners and watched him a little bit with BYU. But kind of interesting little nugget. This kind of made me go, what could have been if BYU would have landed Tom Brady? Because back in those days, in 1995 was when Tom Brady was being recruited. BYU was like, if you're a great quarterback, you're going to consider BYU. Yeah. And John Walsh was a quarterback who left early after his junior season, but he was a hyped NFL draft prospect and ended up being a 7th round pick, but was considered maybe a number 1 guy by individuals like Mel Kiper. So BYU was kind of an it thing at that time in terms of quarterback play. So it was only kind of natural to think that, Tom Brady maybe had a little bit of interest in BYU. To what extent, who knows? But kind of cool to just wonder. BYU that year got Steve Sarkisian, who's obviously a well-known coach now in college football. They also got Brandon Doman in that class. So they did okay in their own right. But hey, Tom Brady, are you kidding me? Like, that would have been game-changing for Lavelle Edwards in his final years as the head coach of the Cougars. So I thought it was a little bit of a interesting nugget of BYU knowledge that, quite frankly, I didn't even know myself that Tom Brady and BYU had a little bit of interest together.
I know you know everything. It's pretty amazing. It's all those little things, these books. It's like it all comes back to BYU. And also, was it '96 the Cotton Bowl year and they played Kansas State? Like,
yes,
who knows what could happen? And that team really, really good. So it's always fun to see these little things here and there. It's like, oh, this great player was looking. No, obviously not obscure school, but not like Tom Brady goes to Michigan. We said we know the story, but it's like this great athlete who's like, oh, they're looking at BYU for whatever reason, like the Mike Leach story. So he went to BYU, the Andy, like stuff like that, where these amazing guys have some tie back to this school. So it's like, okay, it's always a fun. These are great things to find. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the bigger thing that it highlights too is just kind of like BYU's place in college football at that time. Like, heralded recruits looked at BYU and considered them. And that's maybe like you circle it back to today, BYU football, like Kalani Sitake, he has a deep, profound respect for the history, the tradition of BYU football. And he, like so many people watching this and follow BYU football, they love BYU football. Kalani loved BYU growing up, the greatness of BYU. And that's where he's trying to get it back to. And it's much more difficult today than it was back then, because the sport back then, as we know, it was regionalized. Now it's a national game where, yeah, you might be playing high school football in California, but you have no problem going to the Deep South and playing for Clemson and Dabo Swinney. So, but Kalani's trying to build a program, and this year they're having a lot of success, and maybe the fruits of the labor that Kalani's trying to build to maybe a little bit emulate Lavelle in some capacity in his own way is being highlighted now soon. But I think it just really gives perspective about what BYU was once upon a time in the college football world.
Yeah, it's like that's like I mentioned, K-State, Cotton Bowl. Like, they're obviously the name's still there. It's just the actual results the past couple of years haven't quite been there. If Kalani could bring that back even close, like let's just say typical schedule, like non-COVID years, they play all these Power 5 teams, which would have been great this year. And if Matt Bushman haven't gotten hurt, like if they were to go like 8 wins on a schedule where there's 9 P5s plus Boise State plus the Utah State who's going to be bowl eligible, like that. I'm not saying it's nearly as good, but if you're going out to Arizona State, Michigan, all these teams are trying to play, they beat USC, Tennessee, they can get back close to that range. You got to win a few more, and it's very difficult. But like he wants to bring the name back, and hopefully this year, who cares who they play? They go whatever they play, 6-2, 8-0, 9. You know what I mean? Whatever games they play, have a great year this year. Their name comes back around. Okay, yeah, you beat Troy, you beat Navy, you beat these teams, but get the momentum going. And Zach Wilson comes back one more year. It's like hopefully he gets back because it's fun when teams win and local teams win 10 games. Like last year, Utah nearly to the freaking playoff. We're like, what? This never happened. And so it's fun if every team can do that. And hopefully Kalani with him, like I said, he knows the area, he knows the history, he wants it back. And it would just be amazing to be back to build that stuff. All right, so let's do one last thing real quick. Let's go to the Utah Jazz. Our buddy Ben Anderson, who does everything Jazz for us. We have the Western Finals, Eastern Finals, and Jazz fans, you could still, I guess, get your tissue and relax. My Rockets lost as well, so I'm with you. They've been knocked out for a while. But he puts a good piece, like how close is Denver and the Utah Jazz? Like how close are they? He argues pretty close, and I think the same thing because Denver was down 3-1. They had against Clippers, came back to win. My main thing, Mitch, with the Jazz, no Boyan. They did have Conley for those couple of games, but the main thing he points out was the depth and bench in that series. And if they get Boyan coming back in the bubble, if they can re-sign Jordan Clarkson, like they're not just close to Denver, they're close to basically everybody but your Los Angeles Lakers out west.
Yeah, I think they are really close. I think the issue though with this season is that everyone knows at some point Golden State's going to come back, and Golden State's going to be. They got that number 2 pick, and in free agency, heck, there's rumblings that maybe in 2021, Giannis Antetokounmpo maybe ends up at Golden State. Who knows? But that's why this year was such a you got to capitalize. You got to find that window because Golden State's going to get back into this thing, and they're going to be a force that no one wants to be messing with. But yeah, I do think the Jazz are close. If they would have had Boyan, I think maybe we're talking about the Jazz in the Western Conference Finals. I wouldn't take Jamal Murray over Donovan Mitchell right now, even though Jamal Murray is having an incredible playoff run. It's remarkable what he's doing in the bubble. I'd still take Donovan Mitchell, though. I would have, obviously, Jokic over Gobert, in my opinion. But Gobert is a great fit for what the Jazz do. I think the Jazz, just that injury to Boyan. I think also you got to remember that series, there was the interruption with the protest for Jacob Blake, so it's suspended play. I think that kind of threw a little bit of a wrench into the series, the flow of it, having that 3-1 lead. I do think that played a part. I think the Jazz could have definitely hung around with the Clippers too. I mean, I thought the Clippers got exposed quite a bit in this playoff series. Kawhi Leonard, wants to talk about load management, during the season, but then he gets to the end of the year, at the end of the road, they lose after giving up the 3-1 lead. And he's talking about we need more games together. We need more chemistry. It's like, hold the phone. Like you were load management. You were sitting
I know,
yeah. Yeah, I think the Jazz are very close. And I think Ben Anderson hit on the head that they are inches away. And that's why this offseason you can somehow get another piece in here or get another young guy added to the mix. That's where that can maybe help close the gap and get where the Nuggets currently are in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, they had they not blown those leads and when they were up when I get also the disruption of play that kind of hurts any momentum what's going on. They could have been into Western Finals without Boyan. You know what I mean? The way Donovan's playing, scoring 50 points multiple times, it'd be tough to keep that going 35 plus throughout their whole playoffs. But think of it this way: they could Clippers, whatever, go deep against them. They could be versus the Lakers now. But again, the bench kind of they had to shorten it up because of obviously Boyan being gone. But we bring back Jordan Clarkson. Bring back guys. They need better defense. They need to be 3-point shooting, to chuck it a bit, but get that tone down. But you're right, get a piece or two there. And you mentioned the good stuff with Golden State. If they get the second pick, if Steph's ready, everybody's healthy. At the very worst, 2 through 5 or 6, 2 through 6 essentially is extremely close, and that's not even including the Warriors. Or look what Dallas could do with Luka. How well if he improves as well. It's going to be a tough fight in the next couple years. But I still think even with how the rest of the league looks at, because LeBron's not going to hang out forever, but Lakers seem to find somebody regardless who it be. But they're like 2 through 6. Anybody could have it, and the Jazz have. It's like every year in the NBA, you have these steps you take. Like if you go to the last stage, Jordan versus Celtics, versus the Pistons, or if you go back to other teams, you always get stuck somewhere. Pistons versus Celtics, Lakers versus whoever. It's always okay. We make it to the Western semis. Oh, dang it! This year, next year we get to the finals. We get over the hump. That could be the Jazz year. They bring more pieces back, and if who knows? Also, Mike Conley, if he plays better the whole year, like we saw how bad he struggled, making 30+ million. He played well in the bubble, but if he gets to consistent self all year long, like what's to say they can't be a 2 or 3 seed next year, whatever the season looks like, and not to be a 60, but they might have an easier path, but a more home court advantage possibly as well. If we get those home games, which fingers crossed, guys, for what's going on, but they're right there. Like to say they're not a West contender would be false, and they're very, very close and in that category, I'll say.
Yeah, I agree. And I also have to add, too, I don't know if you saw it, the shoes that Donovan is putting out with the Dawn issue, too. I don't know if you the Woody and Buzz Lightyear shoes are like, whoa, I want to be a kid again. So that right there like makes
get them anyways. Come on.
Even more in my eyes.
Do they make them an adult 14 for me? Come on, I'll go buy those.
Hey, you just took the words out of my mouth. I need an adult 14, please. Sign me up.
So, get his shoes, whatever. But yeah, they're right there. It's going to be. We'll see. Whatever. Do you really quick? Well, I can't ask you this because it's Lakers, Denver. Doesn't matter. You want Lakers all the way. But I wonder if the typical Jazz fan want to see the Lakers do well. I mean, excuse me, the Nuggets, not Lakers, please. Come on, Nuggets do well. They're not going to get past it, but
I think in this series, they probably want the Nuggets. I think just the hatred of the Lakers is far deeper for Jazz fans than it is for the Nuggets. I know the Nuggets are the division rival, but who cares about divisions, honestly? The NBA, like, no one cares about a division title. Like, get that out of here. It's all about hating on the Lakers, and I think that the Jazz would definitely love to see the Nuggets come back and take down LeBron and AD. And, hey, I mean, the Nuggets had the Lakers on the ropes. It took a AD game winner in game 2. They pretty much handled it in game 3. I mean, and they're the cardiac Nuggets, whatever you want to call them. They always come back. So 2-0 hole. It's almost like they were looking at and going, hey, we're in the spot that we wanted to be in. This is where we take off from here. So I think it's far from over, and I think the Nuggets could definitely maybe tie this thing up.
See what we make from it. We lost to the NBA champions, so we're right there. If the Nuggets happen to pull off a miracle and beat the Lakers and whoever they get the East out there. So it's they're great. It's a fun team, and just one of these days they got to make it, Mitch. Right? They got to get over the hump and get there. Yeah,
I think so. I think as long as they got Donovan Mitchell, there's always going to be a puncher's chance at a minimum to be in the mix, to have that hope to be, to make a run to the NBA Finals, because when you got a superstar that can just fill it up like he can, you're going to be in the mix, in the conversation every single year.
Excellent. All right, so that wraps up today for our KSL Sports front page. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 o'clock. Basically anywhere you can stream a video, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all that great stuff. So check out all of Mitch's stuff here on KSLSports.com. Also, Cougar Sports Saturday, 12 to 3. If you get covered for everything with all the college football coming up, hope crossing fingers, Utah State, Utah come back as well. So we'll keep everybody up to date with that stuff, and we'll see you on Friday, guys.